Electric Lodge presents Notes from the Underground with Josh Berkowitz, where we talk to alternative storytellers, comedians, dancers, musicians, poets, and filmmakers about life, art, and we may just talk about nothing at all. Recorded live from Soul Journey Studios in Venice Beach, California. All right, I'm Josh Berkowitz. We're here with the second ever Electric Lodge podcast, where we are interviewing high voltage performers for a performance happening this Friday, March 3rd. I've been curating the show for almost a year, or no, a little over a year now, that thanks to Dr. Joel Shapiro and Patrick Varon. And I want to thank Jeremy Lawrence, our amazing studio manager and sound engineer, who's allowing this to happen. And it's really wonderful what's happened here in the last year. I'm writing currently a 30-page manifesto on the Electric Lodge and all the experiences I've had here and how it's morphed over time. And so I'm just really grateful that all of a sudden here we are setting up a podcast and talking to artists, which is probably my favorite thing. I used to be a really kind of selfish, narcissistic artist, and I still could be, I'm sure, but I'm in this interesting position where all of a sudden I'm able to care about other people's process, and that nothing makes me happier. It allows me to be of service and keep things off of myself, but still get to be in the art world and still get to do what I'm doing as a curator and to set up a show of 7 performers for this Friday, March 3rd at 9 o'clock. Get there early, 8:30. And it just the way I set up the show is meant to bring variety and a bunch of different genres that are all kind of hybrids. So today we have a really interesting, really genuine, very hardcore, cutthroat artist here coming down from Ventura, David Oliver, who I've gotten to spend a lot of time with. Going up there to see John White. There's also some other really awesome performance artists up there. Kevin Carmen, who was down here in November. And then we just had Pete Ipple, who was down here last month, which was really awesome. And Scotch Witchman, who doesn't live in Ventura, but is highly influenced by the Ventura scene, has done some amazing stuff up there. So now we have David Oliver, who I've gotten to know through Art City Studios. And how do we... Actually, Kevin brought you down here back in November, and the three of us were hanging out and sat in the theater. So you've been to a few shows here. And but then I really felt like I got to know you when I was up there at the beginning of the year doing 5x5x5, John White's show. Mm-hmm. And we got to spend some time together, and I got to hear your lyrics. I got to meet your dog, who's crazy. I was thinking about him today, about like when you can't, like when you stare into his eyes, he gets a little flustered. Like,
he gets a little funny. Yeah.
He gets a little upset. So there's a number of things we could talk about. We could start anywhere. But, I think ultimately it's, we want to get somewhere to the thrust of what it is to be an artist and why you do it, why you have to do it. So I know pieces of your history, but I guess we should start from an early place. Where did your artistic life start? As a kid, or when did it really?
I think the first memories that I have of it, I can probably kind of pinpoint, and they're through pencil drawings. And I think when I was aware that I became aware that I was an artist was because my 4th grade teacher started to pay a lot of attention to my artwork, and she actually did some things like take me and another kid from the class who was also showing a lot of artistic ability to an artist friend of her house. So it was like a personal little field trip. And that really made me feel like I had a lot of art in me to get that attention.
Right.
So, but just to see, I remember also just seeing the way my drawings were coming out.
Oh, wow. That surprise! Like, what was your thought? You're like, "Whoa,
I got a knack for this stuff. I'm going to keep doing it because I feel like I'm going to."
Yeah. Do you feel like where did you grew up in Ventura?
I did. Yeah, we moved there when I was 2.
What was that? See, in one sense, I'm like envious. I've talked to you and asked you questions about the place, and obviously I put it on a pedestal in terms of like it being this artistic haven. But What was it really like growing up there?
For me, it was a bit of a roller coaster.
Interesting.
We moved out there kind of with not much. We were living kind of on the side of town that you're familiar with. So, which is the lower income side. And I just had some great experiences actually growing up over there, running through the orchards when I was supposed to be at school, and skateboarding and stuff like that. So I had a lot of freedom as far as not going to school, basically, like other kids did. And I think that actually helped my artwork.
Yeah. Yeah, I something about, I was talking to Pete about this. It's like you're right by the ocean. You're literally right there. I mean, I know I'm in Venice, I could walk, but it doesn't, I feel like the ocean's even closer in Ventura. You could feel it. And it's beautiful. It's not overpopulated, I would say. And something about running through the fields that you mentioned, it's like, that creates such a landscape for the mind.
Totally. I definitely relate growing up in Ventura as being outdoors a lot. Mountains meet the ocean, whole type of thing. Real similar to down here, but I don't know why. Yeah, you're right, though. It feels just a little bit more city-like, I think, down here.
Well, I want to ask you kind of a question about kind of jumping forward a little bit. We were talking about your lyrics on the phone the other day and like the darkness of it. And I've told you bits and pieces of my work, and almost all my work has a darkness to it. Mm-hmm. But I, as a guy, or at least I seem to be a pretty happy guy. And like I was thinking about David Lynch recently, like he's meditates, every day. He runs this whole transcendental meditation movement, but his work is so dark. Like for you, what is that? Like you, you're a very friendly, easy to get guy to be around, really genuine, heartfelt. Where do you think that darkness in your lyrics is? Like, what's appealing about that to you? Because I know I have my reasons for myself, I'm sure, but I'm curious about what that is for you.
That's a good question. And I think there's probably it's like maybe there could be a couple of answers. And I think one of them would be there's a lot of I think that there's a lot of fucked up. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, you wouldn't even imagine what we talked about in the last interview.
Oh, is that right?
You could say most things. I'm careful about certain things I say because I work with, but you could say whatever the hell you want.
Gotcha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that I'm the type that I like to pay attention to the big picture of what's going on, and maybe not so much the details. And the big picture to me is pretty dark. And so a lot of the times when I'm writing a song, it's kind of even if it's metaphorical, it might be for the condition we're in as a whole. Yeah. And then a lot of the dark stuff might come from my past too.
Yeah.
So there might be two things I'm pulling from, two darknesses.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, when you're writing lyrics, like where does it come from for you? I mean, does it come from, Tom Waits says, has said, he's driving and he can see it over the hilltop or something. Or like, he can see it coming from the cloud or, or it's funny. We were talking about the fields, some brilliant blind poet, Ruth Stone, who just died, said she could see it coming from across the hill, and she'd have to run back. She was farming in Vermont and she'd have to run back to her house to go write it down. I mean, where do these things come from for you? Do they come from inside?
Again, I think that there's multiple places that these things probably come from for me, and I don't really lock down any certain way to write these things, but a big part of it is being out in nature a lot. When I'm out camping or hiking, it just flows. Right. And a lot of it too, I'll admit, it's when I'm listening to other artists, other music I really like, and I'll just start writing my own kind of song as I'm listening to their piece. Yeah. And it'll come out completely different in my own piece. So
I want to talk about Redgrass for a little bit, where the concept for Redgrass came from. Is Redgrass a person? Is is it a he? Is it a character, alter ego? Is it a concept?
It's a place.
It's a place.
It's a place.
Funny, we were just talking about. Yeah, the place has character. We were just talking about that with the last person. Yeah. Well, yeah. Tell me more about that.
So it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy place, and I basically look at it as so physically, it's a field of red grass, and there's these bouncy balls that bounce up and down out of the ground. Someday I would like to do this in a large scale.
Oh yeah,
but it's also a conceptual space with kind of like design parameters I've set, and I think that really helps me. Get punch out of my work that way, to have those kind of parameters set up. So it really helps me design the work.
Wow. What I love is the first thing you said about a ball bouncing.
Yeah.
When did you first see that vision?
So
that's a vision.
Have you heard of the band Mr. Bungle?
No.
Okay, you should check them out. They're really a far out band, and I was listening to them when I was driving back from taking my kids to school one morning, and their music is kind of bouncy. It feels dunk dunk dunk. They're real dark circusy kind of a feel, and I just had a vision of these bouncy balls bouncing around like the music, and then just completely visionary stuff. I mean, it just all unfolded within moments while I was driving, listening to that, and I went home and drew it right away. Came up with the name, and I have the original drawing still.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the you have a spot in Art City Studios. I've seen that spot, and I've talked to John White about your work, Kevin Carmen. What iterations of this work have you done up there in Ventura? Because I know it can be changed in a lot of different ways. Like, what's the biggest kind of setup you've done? Because I've seen pictures of some of the bigger stuff where you've constructed. I mean, you can work with your hands and build things. What kind of things have you built around this character, this place?
Well, as you've seen, there's a full uniform and mask, and then all the props. So it's pretty much, there's nothing left from reality when I go into it. It should be all this fantasy. And some of the probably more involved shows that I've done, one, I might have told you about this, out at the old abandoned oil refinery. It's called the Wasteland. And we snuck in basically into a big steel drum that was about 30 feet in diameter, and the acoustics were insane, and the thing was about 20 feet tall. Oh, wow. And we all had to sneak through a little hole in the back fence. I had about 30 people out there.
That's amazing.
And I climbed up a ladder on the back and perched on this little platform and did the first couple of songs up there. And so that was wild. That was pretty...
Man, you and I have such different backgrounds. I maybe have told you, I don't know how to climb things.
I think you did tell me that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I told you that a couple times. Was it, I think something about you telling me about your childhood and running around, skipping school, you're just better at climbing things. My mom was always just careful, and so, that's, are you nervous when you're up there? And I know you're about to get ready for a big climb coming up. Well, you got something planned, right?
To be completely honest, I am very nervous about this next climb because I climbed about halfway. It was a radio tower. It's probably 40 feet tall, and it's just not really made to climb. The parts where you hold on to are real skinny, and it starts to wobble. And I was in my flip flops, which probably wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, no.
Made it about halfway up, and came back down.
You came back down.
I'll get up it somehow, though. That's on the 21st. I wanted to tell you about that.
Oh, yeah. March 21st?
Yeah,
I gotta come see that. I'll be very sad if something happens.
I'm thinking about getting into a harness because it's a little bit...
Yeah, let's do that because I like my friendship with you.
Yeah.
I think you're a good person who's got, you got kids. Like, tell me a little bit. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but when you decided to start working with your sons, are they both 18? They're 19?
They're 17 and 19.
17 and 19.
The ones that perform with me, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Like, when did they start working with you? Was it your idea, their idea? Tell me a little bit about that process.
It was definitely my idea. It didn't take much prodding though. They were really willing. I didn't have to like egg them on or pressure them into it. And it was out of 5x5x5. And I just needed an extra hand. It was some booth that needed strings pulled for the curtains to open. There was actually dry ice that dumped into a bucket of water and it had to be pulled and swung down. And they were the ones who were just willing and gung ho and what they were into it, they showed up for practice and that's what it took.
Yeah. That's amazing. And what I love about hearing about it is that you bring your boys and they got baby doll heads on fishing poles and like people get upset a little bit. Like even somebody who am like okay with everything. I've never made a phone call and been like, hey, you gotta like take this thing out. Like, and it's funny because the last guy who was just here, I said like, and maybe there's something wrong with me right now. Or it's just a different position that I'm in than before. And John White used to deal with this, like when he was a teacher, like, oh, there's only so much you do. But I hate having to be like, oh, no anal play, no baby doll heads for right. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking to me. But there's been situations where you've had your sons with baby doll heads and somebody gets upset or their mother gets upset.
Right.
Like, what's that? What's that? Like, what have been situations there? Like, what has that been like?
It just doesn't really bother me that people get upset. I'm pretty respectful. If it doesn't, if a venue is realistic and doesn't want a certain act, I just won't do it. I don't get offended or anything like that. Right. And I don't get offended if somebody else gets offended. I try to explain to them that, this isn't me being evil. This is just basically something that fucking happened as a vision and I'm going to fucking do it because that's my art.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I lay it down. Yeah. One of the funniest ones, I went to a venue once and pitched my deal and she told me, well, you can do it if you don't dress up in your uniform and don't take any of your props. And so I was like, later. That was the worst one. But that's the only time I've ever turned something down.
Don't do any of your act. You can do it. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah, and you perform a lot. I mean, you perform in Ventura. Like, what? It's funny because I was talking to you last night. I was like, man, I like need a studio up there. I need to move up there. Like, and then kind of found out that I probably can't. I got a lot of stuff down here, but like, what's your day-to-day like there?
My day-to-day changes based on, as you know, I'm
the gigs you got,
contractor, So if I'm working out at someone's house, it's pretty hectic. It can get pretty hectic, and then my artwork and my kind of personal exercises and stuff that I do get put to the back burner. But other than that, if I'm working in my shop, and a lot of my clients, they know what I'm like, and they'll allow me to work at their house at odd hours, and but other than that, I've just set up my life to where I really enjoy it and it makes sense, and I'm still effective with my work and my art.
Amazing. Yeah, when I saw, I got to see your, what do you guys call it over there? It's like your section of Art City. Like, like I was noticing, and first of all, I mean, I love like hearing about the process of like, and I met Paul's the guy who runs it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess we could go into all that of like how you get your section and this and that, but, I noticed what was going on over there. You had a couple stools, a couple drawers.
Oh, I remember.
And you were like, you were still at this point where you're like, oh yeah, I don't know what's going to happen yet. I got this stuff here. Like, I'm like, where has that gone? Because I've asked you before, but I'm curious where it's at, like where that stuff's at now.
Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah. That job got done. That was a neat one. It was an old kitchen that was built probably in like the 60s or maybe even 50s. And it was a bit of like a mid-century retro type thing, but just way outdated hardware and stuff. So I just brought everything to like a contemporary modern look, and we painted it all out. And it's a new kitchen now, and it's down by the beach.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that house right now.
Oh, wow.
So it turned into a lot more work.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Yeah. And I had such a good time when I was down there and we were playing Stoneball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, I mean, that's what's great. Like is there a certain time of day where people start hanging out like that? Like, is it on weekends mostly at the studio?
You can almost count on a group of guys playing that game every day.
At some point
Just
in the day.
about. It's towards the end of the day. It's usually like 2 hours before it gets dark. So in the summertime, it doesn't start till 6 or 6:30.
Yeah.
And then in the winter, it's 3:30 or 4.
Can you explain to me? It's like golf, but bowling. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of like that, or like
crochet,
granite 8-pound marbles. It's kind of like flicking around stone
Those things
marbles.
are heavy.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I don't know if you were in my group when I was throwing this heavy. How heavy is it? Like, how heavy are those
I think
things?
they're about 8 or 9 pounds.
So they're about 8 or 9 pounds, and I'm standing there with all these guys who are like, been doing this a long time.
They're super into it.
And they get this like fragile Jewish guy, and I'm like about to throw this 8-pound ball, and then I go without realizing it. I'm like, I'm worried. And they go, hey man, what the hell are you worried about?
Were you worried about hurting something?
Yeah, I was like about to throw it, and it was like I had to really, toss it to get it down, and I was worried about hitting somebody. And I was so embarrassed after I said it. I go, I'm worried. And they go, but worried? What the hell are you worried about? like I don't know if you've ever, in the history of Stoneball over there, like somebody has been like, I'm worried. Like use the word like worried. There's like a different mentality. There's a neuroses that I have that I don't feel like exists there.
Yeah, and I'm surprised no one does get worried. And yeah, we really don't. And
there's art everywhere. I guess
you might want to. Yeah, there's people walking by. There's dogs. There's
right.
Nobody's ever got hit, and we don't really think about it that way. We just do it.
That's what I'm talking about. There's nothing exists like that down here in LA. I mean,
yeah, nothing gets hit. I think a sculpture has got chipped once or twice, and so now what we do is we put boards in front of all the precious stuff. So
that's what's wild. Is it's so from the outside, you don't know what this place is, and on the inside, it seems like it's just like worth a lot. Like the stuff is worth a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, some of those rocks, there's a part of the yard that's called the store where anybody could just go in and buy a rock.
Yeah.
And some of those rocks are, I don't know what they go for a pound. I'm a woodworker. I'm the woodworker there, but I mean, they are real pricey.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess I'm just trying to get to the heart of like what it is in Ventura that just is so appealing to me, and why I keep like wanting to be there, and like wish I could, somehow live up there and still be down here and do my thing down here. But something having to do with maybe survival and art. It's like finding a way to survive and make your art all day, every day. And like the philosophy at Art City is like, we only have one rule, art 24/7. I mean, like did you, before you started getting involved there, did you feel like you had a home like that, or do you even consider it that way? Like, what's the general feeling when there, or just in Ventura, in the arts in Ventura?
I think you nailed it on the head. It's art. Art is like, it's the leading thing in most people's lives that are over at Art City. Mm-hmm. And I think what I've found with that is that the rest of my life unfolds. It's probably because I'm an artist. So if I put that first, then everything else kind of falls in line. When I start to put my art into the background, I don't know what it is, but maybe I'm just not as happy, and it seems like things don't work out even on my money paying, or how I make most of my money.
Right.
And before I went into Art City, I lived in the Wave, the Wave, which is a community based off of artists.
Right.
All artists. There's 54 artists there from like 21 different countries. It's
right.
pretty far out. And before I was there, so I think I've built my way up into Art City in a kind of a manifestation way. Because before I was there, I was out in an industrial park doing my woodworking. And inside this strip of 9 studios out in El Rio, there was guys that I formed a community with, and we would have foot races after work, and we'd barbecue. And I think I was the only artist, but everyone kind of like dug on it, you know, and they would come by and we would look at, and the other guys were real good at what they did. And so we I don't know, it was really
but
like
I'm thinking about foot races.
Yeah.
You're talking about like just races.
Yeah,
right?
we do shit like that. So I think I always try to get into a group of people.
I just think there's a physical aspect of the type of work's different. I mean, like I was just talking about making art from like a point of view of like Freudian mother issues and things like that. Like, tell me, like lyric wise, like what's been one of the pivotal lyrics that have come out of you where you're like, that's what I have to say, or that line, that's where it's at. Is there a glimpse in some of your lyrics of like, that's encompasses everything you have to say or everything that the world is to you? I guess, you know, I'm talking about it on a spiritual plane too.
I don't know if it's one set of lyrics, but maybe
a couple lines that stick out.
A couple lines that stick out is probably going to be from like something that I just wrote, and so there's like a song right now that I just wrote, and it starts off with "There's a present that's left at the top of the stairs," and the whole song goes around how in the beginning of the song, you know, you think, okay, walk up the fucking stairs and get the present, and by the end of the song, you realize that that present's the last thing that you want. And you're almost forced to get it now because you were manipulated and confused. And I think that's where we're headed as people, kind of going after a present we shouldn't be opening. And we're so manipulated, and it's you and me and it's everybody. And
oh, wow.
So
yeah.
A little doomsy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But there's something satisfying when artists say the thing the rest of us are afraid to say. Something just so, when an artist can put a stage picture together that is so dark, but somehow satisfying. I don't know. It's tapping into that darkness. Maybe it makes everything else okay. Or John White says, in the studio, it's the only place where anything makes sense. That, I mean, I know that's a different point than what I just said, but
it's similar though. I know what you're saying, on the same vein.
You said, you know, the closer you are to your art, the happier you feel, and kind of the further you get away from it, there's
the less fulfilled.
Yeah,
you feel. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit briefly. We only have a couple more minutes, but tell me a little bit briefly about what you're planning to do for Friday.
It's probably half brand new songs that I'll go home tonight and start writing because they're still getting ironed out, and then half of songs that I felt fit along with these songs, and they what I did that you might get a kick out of or appreciate is I chose songs instead of using ones that were all sounding the same and touched on the same subject. I tried to get a real diverse and sing about different stuff. So I wasn't just singing all about doomsday stuff or all about, you know, whatever else the fuck I sing about. So, and I'm trying to blend them together so that they're seamless. So it's all one piece. But very short songs.
Yeah, you gonna bring any of those spikes, those little pieces of red grass?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Please do. Please do. Because I want people to see how visual your work can be.
Totally.
I want, you to be able to do that.
Right on, man. Cool.
That's awesome. Oh, okay. One quick question for you. I mean, it goes along with everything else you said. What do you find to be the most challenging thing in your art or life? Or frustrating?
I know exactly what that would be, and it's the marketing side of it.
Oh, wow.
For sure.
Yeah. I noticed that with a lot of like really pure artists I know. That's the hardest part.
And I would even use the word frustrating.
frustrating. Yeah. Dude, what makes you? Is it a feeling of like this isn't going to get out to enough people? It should get out to more people, or
yeah, and I think that people hearing it fuels me to make new stuff, and so I think I hold myself back by not marketing and getting out to a broader audience. You know, who knows what else I would come to mind.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's always the money side. If I could pull more money, I do make some money through this, but if I could pull more money in, that's going to really help me buy more materials. And I have other ideas of, structurally speaking type things that requare money, time and money, mostly time. So,
wow. Yeah. There's just a lot here. There's just something about, I guess it's always for me, it's either like I'm playing the game really well or I'm being the poet.
Mm-hmm. I can see that in you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe you even have two different hats you take off.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I was doing this exercise the other day, like in an acting class that I'm actually going to do tonight if you're sticking around or anything. But I had my right arm was the performer. He was like the manipulator and the friend. Oh, I'm the friend. And then the hand behind my back was like stuck behind my back, and like that was the poet. That was the grit.
Okay.
But both sides, and then I started finally pulling it out. And so you think almost though, because this one's being so manipulative and this and that he's the bad guy. But the guy behind here, he might want you dead. Like,
some trick psychology going on there for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what your version of that is, but I want to know real quick. Maybe that'll help.
My version of
this kind of dichotomy.
I'm going to have to admit, I am a high school dropout. Dichotomy means.
I'm sorry. Well, I was like,
what is dichotomy?
Dichotomy. Oh man, it's a stupid word, but it's like this versus this. Like, am I more? Am I this side of the spectrum, or am I this, or like, or double-edged sword of like, this is good, but it's also bad. I think that's what dichotomy means. I might not be able to.
And how do I feel about like there being two different sides that I need to juggle?
Yeah.
I think that it's my challenge and responsibility to do my best to learn how to balance my different sides. And like I said, with my marketing, it not doing very well, I'm obviously need some room for improvement.
Well, maybe you should put it on the news that you're climbing a 40-foot structure.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
You just need some somebody needs to. Did you see Scotch climb over glass a couple years ago?
No.
All you got to do if you're going to do something dangerous, you're going to risk yourself. You might as well have a bunch of people there.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the lesson here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, oh, hey, you might as well just see me, make a.
Don't just wait for whoever shows up to get the.
It's like you got to like almost. It's almost like propaganda. You got to pass it around town. Like.
Yeah.
It's great.
I think this is probably. I probably might do a little bit more on marketing after this interview. So.
You and I should make a deal. I'll be more like you, and you be more like me.
That sounds like a good idea.
I think we'd have an Andy Warhol on our hands.
That's a smart way to do it.
Yeah, we should trade because because I've had periods of time where I'm much more introverted about these things, and I still am. But learn how to just be a bit of a socialite too, and it kills me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not greener on the other side. The grass is not redder on the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that's the deal, and I just really appreciate you as an artist friend, and I'm excited to have you come on Friday.
Well, thank you, man. I'm excited to be coming down.
This is going to be great. Going to be amazing.
Awesome.
This has been Electric Lodge Presents Notes from the Underground with Josh Berkowitz. We hope you enjoyed and tune in next time. Recorded live from Soul Journey Studios in Venice Beach, California.